After a packed weekend in Italy, Prime Minister Narendra Modi touched down early this morning at Glasgow. And in Glasgow, the focus is going to be on the all-important climate change summit that the Prime Minister will also be attending. That's a COP-26 called by the United Nations. Prime Minister Modi arrived in Glasgow at 2:30 a.m. Indian Standard Time to attend the summit, which will be attended by the heads of governments of more than 120 countries. World leaders will be sitting down to discuss global warming and the 21st century's biggest challenge for mankind, climate change. Now, the COP26 summit's agenda is to reduce the consumption of global coal resources, limit global warming to 1.5 degrees Celsius, curb increase of greenhouse gases and emissions, and also end subsidies on fossil fuels. Ahead of the climate change conference, Prime Minister Narendra Modi, on the sidelines of the G20 summit in Italy, held bilateral meetings with German Chancellor Angela Merkel, with the Spanish Prime Minister Pedro Sanchez and the Indonesian President Joko Widodo.
India is leading the voice of the developing nations to talk about the various aspects of technology sharing and also discussing that the 100 billion that was promised by the developed nations should be actually now handed out properly. The deadline has already passed, and apart from a lot of these matters, there is some excitement, an exciting announcement coming. We haven't been told about that, but of course with Boris Johnson, Prime Minister Boris Johnson, they will be discussing the Solar Alliance, which they have been talking about and they are founding members of as well. After the national statement, there is a visit to a museum here in Glasgow, which is possibly a museum that a lot of people go to, and a lot of exhibition on climate change is being held there as well. The day will end with a lot of catching up and discussion on the day that has gone by, because there are bilateral meetings that are going to be happening on November 2nd as well. So a very action-packed day for Prime Minister Narendra Modi, who already did 3 bilateral meetings in G20 with Angela Merkel, who introduced her successor to him, the Prime Minister of Italy, and also the President of Indonesia, and now in COP26, a very, very important meet, a very, very important issue for Prime Minister, where he will be the leading voice of a lot of the developing nations. From Glasgow, Scotland. What is it, the one thing that you will ask the leaders of the climate change of COP26? You can look into the camera and tell them.
I think first of all, to say that, Britain now is changing quite a lot. 4 out of 10 are aware of the climate change impact. Young people are not screaming, they're actually asking for change. Indeed, they brought out change in 2019 when this country declared climate emergency, no more climate impact. The messages are very clear. Act now, make plans properly, be accountable, and we want things to happen for the world. But they also now realize that climate change is impacting some people more than them.
Why is the COP26, the COP26, so important? It's a climate change summit that the world is watching right now. It's an annual climate change conference by the United Nations, and this is the 26th edition of the summit of all the member nations. Now, it aims essentially to save our climate system, and this is one of the biggest talking points in the world right now, climate change and its impact. 197 nations had signed the treaty back in 1992. India also was one of those who signed signed this treaty. The members meet every year, and since 1995 it's been a norm to hold this kind of a meeting to discuss climate change and other issues. India had also hosted this particular summit a few years ago, almost 10 years ago, in 2002. The United States had withdrawn in 2015 under US President then Donald Trump, and now they are back in this summit thanks to Joe Biden. Now there is the focus at this point for COP26 is net zero emissions by mid-century, and that's something that they've spoken about time and again. Also to keep the goal of 1.5 degrees of global warming, to ensure that the temperatures don't continue to go up the alarming way they are right now, and also to protect communities as well as, very importantly, natural habitats which are increasingly being destroyed across the world. Aggressively reduce coal use is something that the COP26 focuses on, to move from coal use to clean energy, to also sort out rules for a global carbon market, for which of course you need all nations to come together, all world leaders to come together and discuss the same.